Great. So welcome everyone. This is Henry Lepler for Good of the Whole. And we're at the beginning of the second week in July. And I noticed that one of the things I'm doing this time of year is trying to savor my experiences outdoors, to really drink them in. I guess, I don't know if it's to store them, but at least to be without regret that I missed the connection and missed connecting with all the beauty that's outside and opening to that through my senses. And so I feel like it's almost like taking in nectar. Maybe some of you can relate to that. And I also just heard from a teacher sharing about one of the most important things, at least that he thought at this time, was the reawakening of our senses. So anyway, I feel like this theme in a certain way will connect that Michelle will be bringing forward today. We'll be connecting with the senses and especially the heart sense. So let me see. So again, we come back, we return to the watering hole, spelled W-H-O-L-E. We return to this home frequency that we've been cultivating and which connects with the radiance, with the light and the love within each of us. And so happy to join with you again. So I guess I don't have to say too much about the guidelines, but the few guidelines are kind of keeping yourself on mute unless you're speaking, and also saying your name. For those on the phone, we don't have anybody on the phone right now. So speaking from our essence, from our hearts, that's the kind of practice that we are cultivating and opening kind of organically to the thread that is showing up, that emerges in each moment in our sharing. The suggested is to speak from 1 to 2 minutes. And you can speak more than once. It looks like we'll have an opportunity to speak more than once here. And when you're finished, to just acknowledge that you are complete. So welcome, Nancy. Good to see you. And also leaving a pause, leaving that sacred pause, a place of stillness and connecting again to the field. So I'm going to begin with a short attunement. And 1 minute. I'm just going to mute. Good. So anyway, so I invite you to get comfortable, to just be comfortable and let's take a few easy, deep breaths together. We come, we arrive, we attune within ourselves into this larger field. And we align, we feel the alignment as we come into resonance with the inner frequency and our interconnected frequencies of the heart. So breathing in and out now through the heart space. Opening to your unique expression of love and light. And open also to the music, the unique expression of the music of the universe that is within you. You might even see, sense, or feel that music. And open, finally, just opening to your connection with nature at this time of year, and feel and sense the different experiences that you have had, that you have daily, and your perhaps even intimate connections with nature. And now returning in the next couple breaths, returning back to the space, to our sharing. And sorry. And I'm going to invite now Michelle to pass the talking crystal to Michelle and invite her to share the reflection for today.
Thank you, Henry. And thank you everyone for being here with us this morning. It's exciting when you talk about the connection to nature and the topic of this morning of compassion. And as I'm at our lake and we're trying to figure out how to coexist with all that's happening in nature out here with the various species and weather and all of that, it's another extension of the compassion from our topic today that brought forth, that wasn't naturally brought forth for me as I was preparing this. So I'm going to read through this for those who haven't had a chance to take. Our topic today is connection. Once again, I love how this rises from places that I'm not even aware of in pulling this forward and asking for the topic to come, because I think of often and practice it, or that I don't see it around, but I just don't always think about it. So first of all, a quote from the Dalai Lama: "If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion." So from Greg Braden's Human by Design, I found this several paragraphs that really will bring us into what we're going to rise in the field today as our collective global heart resonance thrives. "In your traditions," I began, "what is the force that connects us with other people, our world, and all things? What is the conduit that carries our prayers beyond our bodies and the stuff that holds the universe together?" With a smile that never left his face, the abbot held eye contact with me as a translator repeated my question in Tibetan, which I will not do here today. Suddenly, the room became quiet. Everyone stopped talking, and the abbot lifted his gaze upward to the thangkas that covered the chapel walls. After inhaling deeply the cool, thin air, my question in a way that was both surprising and unexpected. He looked at me and simply spoke one Tibetan word. Instinctively, I glanced at the translator. What did he just say? It was only word. I prepared for what I heard next from my translator. "Compassion," he said. The Geshe says that passion is the answer to your question. Compassion is what connects us to every creature and to all things. Compassion is both a force of nature and an emotional experience that connects us with nature and life. And again, that's from Greg Braden in his book, Human by Design. And to get us started, how are we living out compassion as both a force of nature and an emotional experience that connects us with nature and life in a way that allows us to recognize our interconnectedness? Just pausing on that for a moment and just putting it in there one more time. How are we living out compassion as both a force of nature and an emotional experience that connects us with nature and life in a way that allows us to recognize our own interconnectedness? And with that, the field is talking.
Good morning, all. This is Kate in South Dakota. I'll pick up the talking feather for a moment, and interesting topic. And as you were, I don't know, just the thoughts. I'm thinking of this cosmic glue, the mana of life that Henry talked about. How we all kind of see it a little bit, this energetic binding that happens, and how almost those could be synonymous. This energetic sea that we float in just fascinates me. I always feel a deep connection to nature, and I'm kind of in a quandary right now, as a matter of fact. I'm going on a big sacred trip. I leave tomorrow to go to England with Nina and Joseph. And so I'm quite excited. It's going to be 14 beautiful people that will gather at these ancient sites and feel the interconnection. And I think it is my trail of stones that leads me to want to go on this pilgrimage, as a matter of fact. And you see my storytelling scarf behind me. Everything becomes kind of a never-ending story. But the quandary I'm in is that I just went to my, speaking of connection, I just went to my 40th year reunion. And of 48 of us, 28 showed up at the 40 year. I was so impressed with small town rural America. I come from this idyllic town of 1,000 people, Carousel City, it's known as. There's free carousel rides for the children always at Carousel City. But when I get home, there were scales on my cherry tree, and the thrips are really taken after my hollyhocks. And my beehive is just, it looks really, so every bit of me wants to go, because I'm kind of a novice on this beekeeping. I know I need to add another box and get a queen excluder, but I haven't done this operation before. So my thrips, I know that they would respond to malathion if I was to spray the buds with malathion. But now that I have the bees, I don't want to use anything at all. But I did spray a few of the scales on the cherry tree because it just started. So if I can, stop that before any, so it's fascinating to me how I feel. And so now every bit of my heart really wants to stay home and just care for the things around me. And that's how deeply connected I am. The thrips are on, when I came back home and did a survey of everything, I noticed the parasites and the bugs that had exploded as it got hot over, the hot, wet conditions. Anyway, I'm not sure. I hope that didn't take us too off topic. I am, and seeing how that this cosmic glue and mana and that compassion is that energetic force, is just beautiful. And so, you know, I will carry my compassion for all life with me as I go on this journey. And I'll return the talking feather, and thank you for listening.
This is Michelle, and I feel compelled to share this story of an experience over this last week where, again, trying to manage nature and the conveniences that we would like to have and how we would like to experience it, and both the beauty and wonder and glory of the nature and the great inconveniences and irritations and frustrations of nature, and how to have compassion for that. And then living with other people and having neighbors and others who have very different philosophies around nature. And there is an experience in which the lake has a tremendous amount of Canada geese. And they, are really beautiful and wonderful, except for when they land on your property and hang out for a while. There's a great inconvenience, and all of a sudden shoes become more important and you make different choices. But there are some on the lake who are taking it, rather than adding their feet, they're choosing to the geese away, and not just haul them away and relocate them, but to destroy them. And not even to destroy them for food for other people, but literally just to destroy them. And my heart aches, and I am compelled to loud and talk about trying to find compassion in these situations in which people just have completely different philosophies and relationships and understanding of that interconnectedness. And in that moment, I literally could hear the voice saying, "Where is your compassion, Michelle? Do you know how to live in compassion when it isn't convenient, when it doesn't fit your story and they don't want to shift and change? Where's your compassion?" And so in the moment, it's the compassion of speaking my truth amongst their truth, which, they look at me as if I'm, the silliest thing on the planet. And yet there were some who pause and go, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." Or, "Yeah, I suppose they could make food for other people." And so I guess, for me, I wonder, was that moment for me to practice compassion versus them having lack of compassion? And it's that whole thing and I feel like we're called for the true interconnectedness, and the shifting of it is really to be able to have those conversations and to speak our own individual truth without the judgment, recognizing their journey is different than ours, but we're meant to speak. And however that is, it's shifted and changed me in that experience, and perhaps it's shifting in some of them in that wow. Think about it, all of this too, the trees. Do we let them eat our tree, or do we get rid of the bugs? And it's that continual contemplation about what decisions to make. Trees actually, and I greatly with it because I'm sure sometimes I throw that out there, because when we think about compassion, it is understanding nature when it doesn't work to our desires. And nature has compassion towards us when we don't work towards desire. And I'm complete.
So it sounds like, this is Henry, it sounds like what's being expressed is part of the dance. It's part of the dance of our interconnectedness and how best to respond to all of the different factors in nature, to respond compassionately, to respond with wisdom, to respond even with forgiveness for ourselves, which is part of compassion, and others, of course, and nature. we might get upset with certain things happening with in nature. And I guess that's also part of the wisdom that and the perhaps suffering that moves us to find better ways to live in harmony with nature and to get those deeper wisdoms or choices that help us. So it's all part of the compassion and realizing our connection, our interconnection with all of it. And I kind of noted as well that passion and compassion, they come from the root word is pati, which means to suffer. And so it is, it's almost like our pati, our suffering brought us together in this circle. And maybe other circles or other connections. And we have this shared suffering, the shared compassion, and also the shared desire to create something new because we know that there is something better. So one last thought, not to directly connected with that, is that I love the seeing compassion as a force of nature. It's kind of beautiful to consider that. I like new ways to find meaning. And that's kind of a new doorway of meaning when thinking about compassion as a force of nature. And then I also connect that with, since we are part of nature, that it's also a force of our natures that we cultivate here in the circle and in other places. So with that, I feel complete.
I would like to pick up the talking stick, and when I connect with compassion, it seems is there is a connection between this feeling, this state, this quality of the heart, with that original desire of the field that wants to show itself. So if I want to open that, it feels like it's like the best creation story that we have today is that field of potentiality, the field of awareness, that it has the potential to become aware of itself, become conscious of itself. It's that desire that wants to show up, to have an experience of itself, that longing, that desire. I don't know why when this is coming, but it feels that desire, that feeling has a quality. To me, it has the closest quality to the compassion. The other day, I went for a walk. I've been going for a walk around the creek that I've been gifted here. And one day was all, the day before was raining and the grass was tall. There was a little narrow path that I was walking along the creek. And in the space that I was feeling very connected, I was just telling the grasses, I am like you, but I look like this. And the other day, yesterday, I went and I was putting my hands in the water, and the water was running. And as I was, the chill, the freshness of the water, and looking at this little pimples, the little rocks there. And all of a sudden, it was like, oh, is that why we are here? Because of maybe the yesterday's experience, telling the grass, I'm like you, but I look like this. And then now the water and the little rocks and the trees and the bushes. Oh, is that why we are here? That to know that we are different faces of the same thing. And from that connection, then it seems it would be different. It would be totally different experience of living and loving and sharing and celebration. So the question that was asked, that how would you experience compassion? I would say, and with what was said about the suffering, that when I allow to feel all my feelings, the compassion for the self is really the source of it all. I wonder what I said, it makes any sense. That's what it was. I'm complete. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to find a quiet place here at the lake. I had a challenge with compassion over the last week. A huge challenge, which challenged me, like it woke me up, like, oh my gosh, I'm not in compassion. We have company that comes in, usually stays a whole week over the 4th of July. And this year, one of my nephews and his young family came the Friday before the weekend. Like they stayed 10 days, I think, here at the lake. And others stay 7, 8, 9. And I had a couple incidents that were really fun, but when you have 35 people running around in a small space, it's very different. And, you know, my idea of the lake and nature and let's get outside and let's play in the water and let's do this. And we had thunderstorms every night and morning, and there was wind and but then it was gorgeous and we could get outside. But 4 nights in a row, one of my nephews from my husband's side had turned 21 in April. And all of my family from my side are 20s, 30s, and on up, our children, and then the grandbabies and the nieces, great nieces and nephews. But 4 nights in a row, all the 20-somethings wanted to go across to the marina and close it down and drink all night and then be hungover all day and lay in bed. And I was just like getting like, oh, this is not my idea of hosting this family thing. And like, kind of like Michelle, like, I must be a real prude. I must be a real fuddy-duddy, but this, you know, I didn't say anything. But what I noticed was getting frustrated and angry inside, and then not having my own self-compassion, like was just mentioned. I wanted to have a book review. The publisher sent me the first box of paperbacks, and they were here, and I wanted to have this. I wanted to have a book review. I wanted my family to be all around, and I wanted to open it up and surprise them. Oh, I even get teary just thinking about it. And there was never a good moment because of, you know, half of them were still in bed and when I planned to do it, and then it was mealtime and it was crazy, and then it was, you know, clean up from the mealtime, and I had planned it, and every day I'm like, okay, well, tomorrow I'll surprise them late morning, and nope, then a different group goes to the marina to close it down, and it's like, oh, and I did not have compassion for them. I was frustrated, and I didn't have compassion for myself. And after I got this reflection Saturday, whenever I got that from Henry and Michelle, thank you, it's a beautiful one. I remember Greg talking about this when I had him on my show, and when we were chatting before, we were talking about this very element of connection and and how do we experience connection? And I think about all the ways I experience connection, and that, there would be conversations with some of my family. There would be quiet moments over here with a few, and we would be in dialogue and have that connection. And I noticed when I got the reflection how with those that I was irritated, they were different than me. They wanted to go to the bar and they wanted to drink. And it was like, I didn't work for connection at those moments, but I didn't experience it either because I was in judgment and I was not in compassion. And as a 21-year-old, I'm not a drinker. I didn't go do that thing. And I know it's a cultural thing. That wasn't my thing. And it never has been my thing. So it's really hard to have compassion for those who are different from us. And I'm thinking about, and maybe I'll just drop this in, and I hear some noise outside the door, so it might be the plumbers, but I have great compassion for those in need. I have great compassion for hungry children, for abused adults and children, for victims of violent crimes, for those in war territories. I have great compassion for those in religious unrest against others. Like, I have great compassion. And I always practice this, forgive them, they know not what they do. But I have this slight intolerance of those who can for those who have the opportunity to wake to our humanity, for those who have the opportunity, who have incredible abundance around them, who have amazing lives, I get a little intolerance of them not being awakened to the needs of humanity and the needs of nature and the needs of those bees in Kathy's garden and the needs of the trees and the blossoms it's like I need to practice that. I think this is going to be my July inner work now, is how do I develop compassion for those who have the opportunity but choose to stay asleep. I know those who are less fortunate and who are hungry and starving and war-torn, and it's hard for them. But when we live in abundance, how do we really practice compassion for those who are even in our own families? So anyway, with that, I love all my nieces and nephews, even the ones that were hungover every day. And at different times, I practiced compassion and love and connected with them. But on those days, I was really like, so. And then the bigger lesson was, my daughter said this morning, do you want to have a book reveal party now without everybody there? And one of my sisters that left had read the book, and one of the few people who were there out of the 30 had read the book, and I wanted to do it when she was there. So anyway, with that, sorry, that was a little lengthy, but it's an important query for me, and I appreciate you witnessing that, because I have some work to do. So with that, I'm going to turn this off again because I hear the noise. So much love to y'all.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Just nod your head. Okay. I finally found the right audio visual that would work for me this morning. Boy, compassion, connection. I have been struggling with compassion for quite some time now. And it has to do with when somebody betrays you, how can you find the place for compassion and find the balance of disconnecting? Like the most compassionate thing I can do for myself right now is disconnect with my sister to such a degree that I've kind of had to have a little virtual funeral for my sisterhood with my sister, and just think of her as a person who is not very compassionate or nice. And my 60-something years of being compassionate for her and then being betrayed, I'm trying to find the balance for finding my own compassion for myself. And it's rough. It's helpful to be with all of you today. I love connection. I live for connection. It gets me up in the morning, and I just feel a lot of support from you. So one of the ways I'm dealing with this dilemma is through art. I'm actually in my art studio right now. And this is really neat. I found this course online that's called the Cosmic Smash Booking. So I'm doing Cosmic Smash. You can see this, but this is connection. When I look at this, I feel grounded and okay. And it reminds me of all of us. And interesting, it's all about the nature and the connection and compassion. And I want to have compassion. I want to have compassion for my sister. But I don't really. I need to find a place where it's okay to separate. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to set my boundaries. So I'm working on this one right now. This is very strong, and it's kind of helping me make it okay to kind of like have a funeral for something. I'm not sure what it's not like I wish her dead. I just need to separate. And this is a big deal in my life right now. Many of you know my mom was sick for 4 years, and I really took care of her, and many of you really supported that. So appreciative. And then it's been 2 years of focusing on the aftermath, and it's just really sad. I just feel sad, but I need to separate from my sister, and I'm just grateful that I found art. Here's one that reminds me of all of us in nature, in the trees, just this circle of connection and light in the forest. So I think of all of you as I'm working on kicking my betrayal to the curb through my smash booking experience, which I probably will end up teaching this process because it's very wonderful and very powerful, and it's really helping me. I'm just grateful to use my creativity and my creative process to help me through this. So that's really it. It's a big issue for me right now, compassion, and I think having more compassion for myself right now will be very helpful. And this collaboration it's like I want to collaborate with myself right now, and I want to connect with myself right now and have compassion for myself right now, so that I can do my best to separate from my sister with some sense of love. But right now, I think I'm accepting that this love is not going to be on the day-to-day or the month-to-month or the even once a year. It may be, that's it. The kinds of things you hear about other families. Never think it's going to be yours. But that's where I'm at. And looking at all of you, it makes a huge difference. So thank you for being here and being my circle of light in my forest. I'm complete.
I would like to add something to what was shared. I've gone through the same process with my sister. After mom passed away about a year and a half ago. I am feeling that what I did, you said something about the funeral. I remember that I, for the first time ever in my life, I expressed my anger towards what I was holding. I was just fighting it for years, and I was holding it back for some respect for mom, and because they were very close, and if I'm in the proximity of mom, she's always with her. But it's interesting. I said, this is it. I do not want you to even come to my funeral. Honey, I am the elder sister. She's 8 years younger than me. And but that moment was such a breakthrough moment for me. The expression of the anger in that moment, speaking my truth, what I've been tolerating for these years, it was the most compassionate action that I could have taken. And such a relief. Since then, I didn't have to deal with what was not mine. Something toxic was constantly dropped in my space, and I had to clean it up and pay from my life force. Hallelujah. I am deeply grateful for that moment of compassionate act for the self. And for that, in the beginning, yes, it was residual of anger. But as I becoming more loving and compassionate and nurturing this space, I became neutral first. And then the loving showed up for her, but the loving that already is there It's here. And I don't have to do anything with that. So I salute you for your choice of compassionate self-action. Well, thank you.
This is Michelle. And in that compassion, that passion, that suffering, sometimes we need to retreat for distance from that which is causing us, or seems or appears to be causing us the suffering. Sometimes we need to have that distance from what we perceive in order to have a closeness with ourselves. And that retreat for introspective experiences, so that then we come to find our compassion in a way that we understand more completely for ourselves and for others. And then it's so true, the suffering subsides and the love shows up because we felt all of our feelings. I'm complete.
Yes. Want to follow up on that? Well, it's similar, or at least we have to first love ourselves and take care of ourselves in order to be able to love others or to share the love that we are. And I guess, especially family is a doorway for dysfunctionality, because you can't just not see people, or it doesn't, it's not so usual. It's not, that there is a connection. So what am I saying? So sometimes the only way to really honor ourselves, to love ourselves and be compassionate with ourselves is to do a disconnect when we have tried everything. Kind of thinking from a personal experience I'm sharing from, but there was no doorway to make a change. No kind of agreement to stop the same patterns for continually repeating. So, and just kind of words that some people are expressing, or innate that someone shared with me many years ago, is saying that compassion isn't always pretty. So, so it's just kind of realizing that, and being able to disconnect, so we create space to get at least part of our energy, and sometimes a large part of our energy, back, so we can be more fully who we are and what we're here to be and do. So I feel complete. And it does look like we're nearing the end of our time. So I just invite you all to just take a few breaths to receive in the way that is right all that has been shared, and individually and our collective connection. And experience a compassion for yourself. And at the same time, experience a deep connection with yourself and a self-honoring and a self-celebration. And I'll just open if there are any last short comments before we do our closing. Just invite that. Anybody wants to share.
Well, I think compassionate self-action is like the buzzword of, isn't that beautiful? And endorsing ourselves for having that compassionate self-action. I will really take that away. Thank you all. And the other one, the other phrase, I had kicking betrayal to the curb. I really liked that too.
I just want to thank you all for your loving support. It really means a lot.
Julie, do you have a last comment, or shall we do a closing? Okay. So I invite you now to take yourselves off mute, and we open to sharing the yum, which is actually the mantra for the heart center. So just imagine as we sound the yum that we're sounding the compassion, the self-compassion especially, and compassion for all of our collective sharers in this world, from the blades of grass to all of it. So anyway, take a breath. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you all for joining in.
Wow.
Great topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Mwah.
Thanks.